Realism with your comic books, Bill?
Yeah, I like to see somebody get shot once in a while. They don't do it anymore now because of the code. They can't kill anybody or anything like that. But it does, it did bring something to the comics because somebody's going to have to get shot. You think about, big fight or something, or hurt badly.
What is the most valuable comic book that you have?
Well, I guess I'd have to say Superman #1 because it is the first comic character. And he first got his own book in 1940. This is it, Superman #1.
That's the first issue that ever came out, is
yes,
that right?
Sir.
And that's worth how much?
About $40 if it's in good condition.
Now, you say that your collection is worth maybe $40,000 or more. How do you value it?
It's valued by many collectors in comic fandom. There's about 12 dealers in fandom. They're strictly dealers, like coin dealers. And they've rated it as $40,000. Or you take any one comic in this room, there's about 23,000 up here. So, and it's times it by 2 for $2, and you'll come out over $40,000.
Over $40,000?
Yes.
Is the value of your collection growing every year?
It grows with the new comics and what's coming out new that's worth money. And it grows.
You're going to sell it someday, Bill?
No, sir.
You're not?
No, sir.
Why not?
I couldn't sell it. When you hold on to something too long, you can't get rid of it. I think I'd keep it till I got married and let my kids carry on when they're old enough or something.
At Memory Lane Publishing in Toronto's Markham Street Village, the antiques are comic books. Superman, Batman, Captain Marvel. And the proprietor is George Henderson, or as he's better known, Captain George.
I've been in business 4.5 years, and when I came into the business, the fad, or what you want to call it, was at its peak, but it's been going, I would say, since about 1951. But it was underground then. Now it's above ground. The people aren't embarrassed anymore about admitting that they collect comic books.
What would you classify as an antique comic book? What do the collectors go after?
A legitimate antique comic book is anything dated from 1945 to 1933. It's a legitimate antique, because comic books themselves, as we know it, that sort of a comic book only started in 1933. So therefore, an antique, it doesn't have to be 100 years old. It has to be near the beginning. So 1933 to 1945.
And just how much do they sell for, these antiques? What do collectors pay for them?
Well, take, for instance, the Batman #1, which everybody talks about, everybody wants. I've gotten $250 for it. It's actually going for about $200 now, $200 for Batman #1, which was spring 1940. Superman #1, which was in the spring of 1939. I see low prices of about $125, but I also see where it's going for something like $300. It depends on who's selling it and who's buying it.
One avid collector is George Olszewski. I collect old comic books because they're rare. They're interesting because they're precursors of the modern day comics that we have. And it's just sort of a collecting instinct. I like to have them. It's very interesting. Also, the artwork in comics is quite exceptional nowadays. I have seen comic art which would compare favorably to engravings by Doré, for example, in his illustrations to the Divine Comedy. Rare comic books are reaching such value that collectors are beginning to have trouble with thieves. But as George Henderson points out, sometimes it's hard to get anyone to take the theft seriously. Stan Ranton, CBC News.
Started 15 years ago. Born, The Thing, one of the Fantastic Four, which is the name of the first book in the Marvel comic series, Thor, and Doctor Strange. Today, the three became cardboard cutouts, complete with happy rotating faces, in honor of a new book called The Origins of Marvel Comics. There are hundreds of heroes and villains in the Marvel universe. One was walking and talking with the kids today, Spider-Man himself, all stockinged up for the occasion.
Spider-Man, did you ever get over Gwen?
Gwen. I'd really prefer not to talk about it.
The book is 254 pages of comic history. Each original strip is accompanied by an amusing explanation of how and why it came about.
We try to make them like real people. And even our villains, they're not all bad, and our heroes aren't all good. And I think that may be why the public relates to the Marvel Comics characters. At the most crucial moment of his life, he might get an allergy attack.
If you could be any character, who would you want to be?
Spider-Man.
Why?
It's like shoot all kinds of webs, fly around the city.
Would you consider yourself a comic nut?
Not a nut, a comic fan, a collector. I don't think there's anything nutty about it.
As Stan Lee would have it,
Excelsior!
A star on radio, television, movies, and product endorsements. In 1947, Siegel and Shuster began a long line of court suits, hoping to win royalties and their names back on the comics. They lost their case and their jobs, but they never gave up the fight.
We felt at one time, during these long years, that it was our American dream, and our American dream then became an American tragedy.
Finally, after nationwide publicity, the new owners of Superman, Warner Communications, bowed to public pressure. The final agreement was signed today. Siegel and Shuster, both 61, will each receive an annual $20,000 pension, full medical care, and provisions for relatives. Their byline restored. A victory for
truth, justice, and the American way.
Sam Chulin, CBS News, New York.
And that's the way it is. Tuesday, December 23rd, 1970.
Dave Monse's at the New York Press Club, where the creators of Superman say they're almost broke and they want to be paid back for the idea they had over 40 years ago.
This was what?
Yes, this was the first story of Superman that ever appeared in print. Action Comics #1, June 1938.
Right.
And this
that's
was
your
the one
Superman.
yes, that's right.
Okay.
And this was the episode which we sold for $130. And starts here. And
Joe, tell me, what did you think you had at this point? This issue had just hit the screen in June of '38.
Well, we felt that we had an exceptional, unusual character that we felt would be a tremendous hit. At least we had faith in it. We felt that this was an unusual character.
Did you get a gut feel?
Last panel of this strip, Jerry and I wrote this caption: "And so begins the startling adventures of the most sensational strip character of all time, Superman, a physical marvel, a mental wonder. Superman is destined to reshape the destiny of a world."
We
wrote that as a prediction, and these were our own words. That's how much. All right.
Yeah.
You want to see it too?
Yeah.
All right. And all right. And so begins the startling adventures of the most sensational strip character of all time.
Reshape?
Well, I guess it did.
Okay.
He doesn't have the ability to work. His brother supports him. Joe Shuster over here. Jerry Siegel has a job in a mailroom. He makes $7,000 a year. I suppose that's all right. Not for the creator of Superman, I don't think. The problem is this, that Superman has made, for Warner Communications, $3 million in one deal, has made millions of dollars for national periodical publications. The humiliation that these guys have gone through as the creators of Superman is so great that I can't describe it. I've sat and listened to stories about Joe Shuster, who had to take a job as a messenger boy, who worked in the same building that National Periodicals was in, and when his old boss, Jack Leibowitz, heard he was working as a messenger boy, found out, called him up to his office and asked him to quit his job because he was embarrassing the company, humiliating the company. And he did. He quit his job. He was given an overcoat and about $100, I think it was. And a few weeks later, he had to get another job as a messenger boy. He stood out front of the theater where the Broadway musical Superman played, watched the celebrities go in and out, and was unable to buy a ticket. This Thanksgiving, because of some of the publicity that finally Jerry and Joe have sought, a nun and a bunch of her class got together and gave Jerry one of the first, Joe, one of the first Thanksgivings he's had in a long time. They brought a turkey dinner up to him. He's been wandering the streets at various times in his career, helped by people who will take him into a coffee shop and find out that he's the creator of Superman, and then people will ask him to sign autographs, and he's unable to eat the meal that he was offered because he's drawing pictures of Superman very, very close to the paper because he can't see hardly, and giving them away to kids. The situation is ridiculous. Warner Communications has made an attempt, a small attempt, to provide some money for these guys. It's a small attempt, and to be perfectly honest, it's the kind of thing that when you look at it, what they're saying is that Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster should be forgotten. They should take a little money. Mr. J. Emmett is a strange case with regard to this, because Mr. J. Emmett made his career out of licensing the character.
Let's just show tight on this stuff. Okay. $20 million production of Superman. Okay. Okay. Page is coming over. Go ahead. Yeah. All right. All right.
Monsi's Channel 2 News at the New York Press Club.
Is it a bird? Is it a plane? Nope, but it is probably a gold mine, the big new Superman movie that opened around the country on Friday, at least from the looks of the long lines at the box offices. Superman will have to be a superstar if the movie makers hope to recover what they've invested in him, not just in the movie, but in that four-letter Hollywood word, H-Y-P-E. Richard Wagner reports.
He has come of age. Superman, a big movie, 4 years and $40 million to get it on the screen. And what is Marlon Brando, one of America's great actors, doing playing the father of a comic strip character? Making a reported $4 million is what he's doing for the short time he's on the screen before the destruction of the planet Krypton. Warner Communications, owner of the rights to everything connected with Superman, has gone to Super Hype. It's licensed some 100 manufacturers to make and sell nearly 1,000 Superman products. You can buy everything from a Superman cake pan set to a Man of Steel tote bag.
I want to get this.
But the biggest market is in toys. Just one manufacturer hopes to sell $30 million worth of these Superman characters in the next year. Warner's cut from just that one company almost $2 million, more if the picture makes it big.
When you have a smash movie, it becomes almost an American cult type thing, and people go back to see it, and they go back and they can identify with it, and the more exposure you have, the more business you're going to do.
The dream of all movie makers now is to duplicate the success of Star Wars. Buffo at the box office, it has also generated some $400 million in spin-off sales. Superman's merchandisers are aiming at more than just kids. Bloomingdale's, New York's arbiter of the trendy, has decreed Superman in. Sweatshirts here go for $35. The satin jacket is $52. Most of the customers are women.
They are buying it for their husbands who want to be part of that macho image of having a Superman t-shirt and being involved with the movie in the sense of I'm here with my Superman t-shirt and I'm identifiable because I want to be Superman, that whole image.
But to those attending conventions today in Chicago and Dallas, the comics are no laughing matter. No, they're big business. And to keep on generating hundreds of millions of dollars, the oldest superheroes are trying to stay up with the times. Joan Snyder reports.
Up in the sky! Look! It's a bird! It's a plane! It's Superman!
But don't look for the familiar, all-powerful Superman anymore. The comic's first superhero, born in 1938, was recently reborn to capture a new generation of comic book addicts who have turned to more unpredictable and vulnerable heroes. And Superman's not alone. Batman and Wonder Woman have also been transformed. The changes have been made because the old superheroes just weren't flying as high, wide, and handsome as before. Sales of their comic books were down, and Superman's publishers worried that the Man of Steel was getting a bit rusty. The once dominant trio had been faltering, while the comics industry itself is booming.
These are about 100 apiece.
Revitalized by young artists and writers who are breathing new life into an art form that was born in America in 1895. Over the years, comics gave Americans their most widely shared art and language and humor, changing with the times, coming up with superheroes who always triumphed over evil during the turbulence of the Depression and World War II.
There are now more publishers than there ever have been in the industry. There's more interesting concepts and more fantastic artists than there ever have been.
The comic book revolution has made Superman less powerful, more vulnerable, returning to the basics of his earliest appearances, lifting cars instead of solar systems, fighting human punks, not space monsters. His other identity, one-time wimp Clark Kent, is now a self-confident swinger who prefers blondes to Lois Lane. Batman and Robin, once an innocent dynamic duo, now get involved with sleazy characters, even a floozy, holy moly, who invites Robin to come back when he's older. Wonder Woman, often seen in bondage to men, is now a feminist role model. The transformed superheroes are doing super business, although the Man of Steel does have critics.
He kind of soft now, ain't he?
Nah, he cool though. I like the way
he like calmed down before he was rougher.
You can't keep a good superhero down. There he goes again.
You are probably asking yourself, who is America's #1
Snyder,
comic
CBS
strip hero?
News.
We have the answer. It is Spider-Man. And Spidey is swinging his way into his 25th year. My, how time flies. He's got a television show now. He, of course, has a Marvel comic book series and a daily comic strip that runs in 350 papers worldwide, and now he is featured in the new Best of Spider-Man collection. And as all Spidey fans know, it is Stan Lee who created Spider-Man back in, I think, 1961, and a whole generation of Marvel comic book superheroes and supervillains. And good morning to you, sir.
Good morning. Good to be here.
People don't really remember that back in, say, the 50s and going up to 1961, it was a hard time for superheroes, generally speaking. They were sort of battling a little bit just to stay on the pages, weren't they?
As a matter of fact, there weren't too many of them around. In those days, we were publishing mainly monster stories and Western stories and teenage books. We didn't have that many superheroes.
You did sort of eerie tales kinds of things.
That's right, yeah.
And it was Superman and that collection of people that had the whole superhero area cornered.
All to themselves.
So what, did you consciously say, okay, let's go after those guys?
No, we consciously said, let's put out something that'll sell well so we can eat regularly. And Fantastic Four was the first book we put out, then the Hulk, and Spider-Man was our third. But for some reason, Spider-Man really became the most popular, sort of the flagship of our company.
Publisher says, Stan, you got to be crazy.
Yeah. My then publisher said, the name was no good.
I know you said then publisher.
Well, no, he's since sold the business and retired. But it's not that he wasn't dethroned. But at any rate, he felt that the name Spider-Man was no good because, people didn't like spiders, and it sounded too much like Superman. And then he felt, how can you ever make a hero out of a teenager, which Spidey was at the time, and especially a teenager who was a loser half of the time. He was sort of the Woody Allen of the superheroes, you know. But luckily it worked.
And Spider-Man was fashioned after a lot of your neuroses, is that true?
Well, I tried to keep him realistic, and I don't know of anybody more realistic than I am. So whatever little things worried me, I'd have Spider-Man worry about them too. You know, making a living, getting a date with a girl, worrying about dandruff, whatever I thought of.
Not getting run over by a cab in New York City.
That's right.
You know, I grew up on comics, and I think about how it was. It must have been back in those days. It had to be a collection of crazies who were sitting around, okay, what we'll do is we'll have Spider-Man run out in the traffic, and he'll get, just all kinds of strange things. Was it as wacky as I picture it?
Yeah, but it wasn't really that much of a conference. Usually you did it on your own. I'd just be home alone, and I'd be thinking, well, what is it I can do with Spider-Man that'll be unexpected? Like, he'll be fighting, and he'll tear his costume, and he has to break off the fight because somebody might recognize him through the tear in the costume. Or he gets a check, and he can't cash it because it's made out to Spider-Man. He doesn't have a bank account in the name of Spider-Man, and he can't identify himself. So it was the normal story, the good guy fighting the bad guy. That's easy. That's routine. That's formularized. But the thing we had fun with was coming up with these little twists that might be unexpected.
But a community of zany people was not around that much.
Oh, no, they were, but the other zanies were doing their own stories. I remember one story. Once we published little funny animal books like Ziggy Pig and Silly Seal and Posty the Pelican.
Right.
And we were in an elevator in the Empire State Building talking, and I was saying, you know, in the last Ziggy Pig story, I think Wacky Duck should have done this. And there were real people, real businessmen in the elevator, and they started edging away from us until they were crowding the walls, and the few artists and I were in the center of the elevator. I didn't realize how stupid it sounded until later.
You know, Superman's retiring for a brief respite.
Well, as I understand that they're just changing him, really. They're trying to bring him more into the real world. Yeah.
You want to retire Spider-Man at all?
Oh, never. No, no. In fact, in the papers, he's going stronger than ever, and in the comic books, he's in about 4 or 5 or 6 different titles now, so I think he's got a long future ahead.
Fat City for Spider-Man for a while yet, huh?
Yeah.
Stan Lee with Marvel Comics. You did some great work over the years. Thanks for talking to us.
Oh, it's great being here. Thank you.
Comic books have never lost the power to amuse, but they've got another power as well. They can bring pretty good, sometimes astonishing prices for those who buy and sell them. Yes, it's Superman, and the price of this first edition has been soaring, dealers say. It's worth $5,000 to $9,000. Then there's Captain America, issue number 2, $1,500 to $2,000. And this early Donald Duck can bring $2,000, a price worth quacking about. Even in a recession, dealers say, many comic book prices are holding up fairly well. And at least one New York City store manager finds demand is coming not just from kids around the corner, but from grown-ups around the world.
There's a doctor in France. His mother spent at least $4,000 on merchandise for him last Christmas.
As a Christmas gift?
Yes.
Most collectors are still young people, but there's something new about them these days. Dealers notice today's customers carefully check out price, condition, and the comic book's artist.
They buy them for investment. The fun is out of it. As far as I'm concerned, the kids aren't buying. The real young ones will buy it because it's exciting, it's something they want to see. But most of the kids are in it for the money.
Teenage speculators and others have pushed up the price of even very recent comics. This issue of Wolverine came out 4 months ago. Price then, 60 cents. Price now, $3. And new Teen Titans, 60 cents 3 years ago, $25 today. Many of the young collectors make no bones about it. They're out to make a killing in comics.
The X-Men, I bought it for about 25 cents, sold it for about $14. $14, right.
That's a pretty good gain.
Yeah.
Well, I guess, Still, there are the traditionalists who buy comics for simpler reasons, like 30-year-old Robin Listevsky.
Because I love them. I love reading them, and I'll always read them. Until I get, until I get 80 years old, I'll always be reading comics. They're fun.
But before you rush out and buy, think about Conan the Barbarian. Its price has never really budged, and the experts say that makes Conan typical. Of the more than 17,000 comic book titles published, fewer than 300 have ever made it into the big money.
Just who is that caped figure down in Atlanta? Maybe John Cheyenne knows.
Does this man look like he's breaking the law? Well, he is, according to DC Comics. The New York publisher has filed suit charging that this character, called Super Stud, violates the copyright laws and infringes on the Superman trademark. Super Stud is the goofy star of Monkey Business Incorporated, an Atlanta-based singing telegram company. For $38, they send around a mild-mannered reporter that DC Comics contends is a takeoff on Clark Kent.
And I think this is a job for Suit Quest.
The publisher also complains that the act is in bad taste.
More powerful than an armpit.
The DC Comics legal action prompted a tongue-in-cheek editorial in the Atlanta Constitution, warning that such trifling lawsuits clog the courts, and that the time approaches when America will be stopped dead by legal gridlock, with everybody suing somebody. DC's lawyers say it would be no trifling matter if the kids of America were to lose faith in Superman.
It's not a violation of anybody's rights, and if it were, we would have wanted to stop it.
I think we have a right to deliver
spoofs and parodies and silly singing telegrams.
While the legal battle bubbles, the controversial super stud continues to amuse and embarrass.
She's cute, let me tell you. So, if there's something you want to say, send Monkey Business to sing it today.
John Sheehan, CBS News, Atlanta.
Unlikely as it may seem, there is a dream factory in Middle America that churns out tens of thousands of fantasies, visions, and adventures every hour, all wrapped up in a little American staple that is making a big comeback.
We do between 300 million and 350 million comic books a year, 25 different titles per week.
Comic books have been rediscovered. Sales at 300 million copies a year have risen dramatically in the last decade.
We're becoming a much more visual society, and I think the kids of today don't want to spend a lot of time on words, but they like stories.
In the heart of Manhattan, forever Gotham to the faithful, Marvel Comics illustrators put the final touches on the likes of Spider-Man, Wolverine, and the New Mutants.
Is this supposed to be blood running out? Yeah.
Sales are growing at the rate of $1 million a year, and artist-writers Walt and Louise Simonson, who work out of their New Jersey home, think they know why.
They're cheaper than videos, they're longer lasting than video games.
It's stuff that the children pick out for themselves.
A fact which hasn't been ignored by a number of the nation's schools and libraries. At the public library in New Britain, Connecticut, adults can check out Mailer, the kids can have Mickey Mouse.
We have found that children who are reading comics eventually do look for other materials.
But it's not just children who are financing the Renaissance with their allowances. Baby boomers are spending big bucks too for the familiar titles or the new $6 and up illustrated novels.
Comics are quick. I don't have to devote an entire evening or a few days to reading a comic.
You don't have to be embarrassed to read a comic book today.
And if you're wondering what's happened to the old comics, well, they're still around, just a little bit more expensive. A 1946 Wonder Woman is now $135, and Captain Marvel from 1943 can be yours for $300. Unlikely as it may seem, comics have carved out a niche in the video age. Superman and the gang are alive and well. Jerry Bowen, CBS News.